What's up, men? Welcome to the Male Cartel podcast. Let's get started.
Do you think men are important? Like for what?
Men are not meant to be dominant. Men are meant to be submissive.
Life's too short to exercise. I'm just going to be honest.
It's okay to be fat.
Dispelling toxic masculinity and really redefining what it means to be a man. Men can cry. So it's okay to be weak. It's okay to be weak.
I'm telling you right now, not everybody wants to see you win.
You seem to be more woman than you are man. You don't have any manly qualities.
You give them this message that it's okay to be a man.
It's not okay, it's necessary. How are we going to do without men? You look around the city here, you see all these buildings go up, these men, they're doing impossible things.
It ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
Be a dangerous man. Being dangerous is not being a threat. They're two different things. You can't be a good man if you're not a dangerous man. You say one disrespectful thing to my wife, I am not only willing, but I'm able to inflict great bodily damage.
I'm going to do everything in my power to become a victor and not a victim. I can't explain it, but you better feel me. Winners win and losers lose. I can't explain it any better than that. I don't know how it happens, but winners win. And if you create a culture of losing, if you keep being a victim, if you keep letting losing happen to you, if you keep letting people do you and treat you any kind of way, it's going to become a culture. What's the matter with you? There is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow.
Here's your host, Nick and Shane.
Well, here we are, episode 1 of the Male Cartel podcast.
Who knows?
Man, it has been so great just getting the feedback and hearing from people from our pilot episode. It was awesome.
Dude, I think so. I think it was overwhelming. I kind of expected it, but I didn't expect it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I expect people would probably enjoy it, but not as much as what I've heard. What about you?
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, you expect that you've got a kind of a circle of friends that are going to listen, family. I knew my mom would probably listen, my sister, my dad, but my wife, you know, but I wasn't sure how far the reach would go, but I've been blown away looking at the statistics, and we are in like 5 countries already.
So if we end up in Texas, then that'd be 6 countries. 6 countries.
Texas is about the size of some of the countries.
That's
I think
true.
we're in Germany,
okay.
United Kingdom,
okay.
Lithuania,
okay,
the United States, and then there was one more. I'd have to look it up, but
okay.
yeah, I didn't expect for us to already have an international audience.
Yeah, we have arrived. Seriously, if we end up in like Costa Rica,
yeah,
because we got a good Costa Rica story.
Yes, we do.
And I think if we end up in Australia, then we can just talk Australian. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And we talk about crocodiles and stuff like that.
Steve Put another Irwin? Shrimp on the bobby.
We can go to Outback. We can eat a blooming onion.
Yes.
Which is actually underrated. I like them. You don't like them, do you? You like?
I'll eat the
crust.
Because
you don't like onions. And you worked on an onion farm too, right?
No, I did missions work.
Missions with onions.
Yeah,
but
I
you
didn't do
So hold up. So you took one for the team as a young man, served the migrant workers that were serving, like, growing onions, which I don't know how much health that would bring to your nutrition to your body. Like, so make you a lot of protein and
smell good.
Smell good, yeah, make you smell good. But like, I love onions. You don't. So you did it. You serve people, and despite not liking onions.
That's right. Shared with them their greater need of Jesus, not onions. But it was Vidalia onions, so it had that sweet,
yeah.
down near Vidalia, Georgia, and Valdosta area, you know, all those. So went and shared the gospel with those people.
Yeah.
So they could pick your onions, having a relationship with Jesus.
Because for some reason, I do remember you not liking onions, but I love blooming onions.
Yeah, I could do without them. But when we get to Australia, we will celebrate with a meal at Outback.
Okay.
And I'll get you a blooming onion.
Okay, I appreciate it. And I'll get you some crust.
It's just I'll just eat some of the crust.
Can y'all fry some crust?
Now, I'll tell you, they have some shrimp that they cook. They fry it in the batter of the blooming onion.
Seriously?
Yes. Those are great. So
Yeah,
I'll get some of those.
Okay, all right, that's what
because
we'll
I eat
do.
shrimp.
100%.
I eat seafood.
Yeah,
so.
I do too. I like that.
So what's been up, man?
Man, dude, so super busy. Now I'm not though, but I was busy. We had a one camp at our church, and then that Iran put on, and then the next week, I mean, literally had like a day and a half just to kind of unwind, and then head out to North Carolina for 6 days, and where I was speaking that night at a camp. And so it was in the mountains. It was awesome. It was actually, it was like 100 degrees here in Georgia, but then there was like the high 76.
Oh, wow. That sounds like where we did camp up in Wise, Virginia. We went late June, but earlier in the year.
Yeah.
And it was nice.
Yeah.
Cool temperatures down like in the 50s. I mean, people were having to wear like jackets, long sleeves. Daytime, I think maybe at the highest it was like in the 80s, but it was ideal place to do camp, and especially doing outdoor activities and stuff like that. You're not having to worry about the heat and the humidity.
Well, as you were saying, I was thinking. I remember driving down the road, like I guess it's not down the road, it's like up the mountain, and I remember when the temperature changed. And it literally went from, you saw outside of the car, it was like it went up to like 87, and then we reached a point where I knew I could tell inside the car was cooler, and it was like 10 degrees drop. It was like 77, and then the highest that day was like 79 degrees.
Oh wow!
But it was wild. I rolled down the windows and everything, dude. Fresh air, straight oxygen. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, no inhaler, just breathe the free oxygen.
So with summer camp, I'm curious because that sounds ideal. However, especially in hotter climates, Georgia, we're central Georgia, but I've got family in South Georgia, done a lot of missions work on the onion fields in South Georgia. There's one thing about camp that I think it's a constant. I don't even think that it has to be in a warm climate. I think it simply has to do with kids not wearing deodorant.
100%.
So did you experience any of the middle school guys, maybe some of the high school guys who, probably could have done a little better job on their hygiene?
100%. 100%. It doesn't matter, where you go to. If it's camp and there's middle schoolers and high schoolers, they're going to smell. And you're going to have some that really care about hygiene and some not. I remember in June, we had a middle school camp particularly, and we had high school kids that came and served. But middle school boys were trying to convince me that they didn't have to take a shower because they went to the pool that day. They're like, I went to the pool. Like chlorine is going to kill their funk, and you smell them, dude. Like they're in front of you, and you're just going, "Oh my word!" Like you made right guard turn left, type of thing.
Well, it's kind of like around here when I can take a shower, get dressed, walk out to the mailbox, and start sweating, just from the humidity.
Yep.
So it's like, all right, that's great. You were in the pool, but by the time you got out of the pool, the heat was already starting to, make you smell.
So you just said that, and I'm gonna tell you, I've just found this out. So I wear like undershirts, and look at this. I didn't even wear a belt today. I don't know if you ever like not wear a belt and you just feel weird all day long because you don't have a belt. And when I was a kid, I always wanted to have a belt. I never could have a belt. We had like a string. So I remember having a string,
like a shoestring.
It was like a rope. I mean, like it put a rope around me when I was.
That's
real
when
little.
You grew up poor. You just got a
rope.
rope.
Poor. But I got a belt and all that stuff. Anyways, but the undershirts. Well, I have white, gray, and black. But I wear the gray and the black a lot. Rarely wear the white, right? And I started noticing I would have it on, sweat a little bit, and I would stink. But I'd smell myself and I'd smell fine, but the undershirt would smell terrible. So I think it was the dye. So recently I got rid of all those black ones. And then I only have one gray one left that doesn't stink. It gets a little bit of moisture, and they're donezo. Yeah. It's made by Hanes, and so if any executive from Hanes, hook a brother up, 2XL.
So one of the things that I think they still do it, but I'm not sure. You're with students much more than I am. My boys, they're very good about their hygiene, and they do man's work. I mean, painter, welder. They are sweating, getting dirty, so they're very good about their hygiene. Do middle school guys still try to mask their body odor with Axe body spray?
Yeah, they do.
Whatever else, cologne.
Now, here's the new one. I saw this for the very first time at camp in June. Never seen it in my life. And because I was by myself, or when my sons were with me 1 week at camp in July, and I was by myself the other time, so I wasn't don't know how people's showers were. However, in June, I saw 2 times in the showers, middle school boys were bathing themselves with Sasquatch. Yeah. So like they would
the
Sasquatch.
cologne or
No, like the soap Sasquatch, and I saw the containers Sasquatch. That's like it's pretty like
I think Tristan
commercial.
uses that. Yeah.
Yeah. So they had Sasquatch, and then I was talking to a kid about it. I was like, hey, you're the Sasquatch, whatever, and it smells pretty good. And he says, yeah, that's kind of like my cologne too. So I did see Axe, and I saw this might be a mom move, but I saw Dove spray, because I don't know too many middle school boys go and find Dove, But Axe,
They do have men's. Dove has a men's.
It
you
did.
know, line.
It looked, yeah.
Was it gray?
It was gray, dude.
Okay, so that's men's.
It's
line.
men's, and then they had Bod.
They're doing pretty good.
Bod's a spray too.
Bod. Oh, Bod. Bod's a Walmart like.
That's that mom who was like doesn't really like her son.
If the mom got it, but that's the kid. I remember when they guys used to think Bod was like it.
Okay.
It was. I don't know what
like
it was
Brute
about
back in the day.
Oh,
Brute?
it's just
Old Spice?
It's just I would say flavored. It's not flavored, but it's scented alcohol. That's all it is. But it had the cool bottles and the bold colors.
That's
but yeah,
exactly
Bod's
right.
like the cheap. But you think you're cool because I got Bod.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of guys need to know that if you don't know this already, maybe some adults, I don't know, but Axe does not axe through the
That's
body
right.
odor.
100%.
It actually makes it worse.
100%.
Like there's something in the Nikki says this word pheromones or something in your skin.
The pheromones
or something.
Pheromones, yeah.
I guess it's in your bones. I don't know,
I don't
but
know.
anyway,
The
she said
pheromones in
something
the
about it
bones.
makes your cologne or perfume and all smell different.
Yeah.
Something about your pheromones when you're dirty and sweaty just does not work with cologne and body spray. It makes it worse.
See, I think probably females, for all the listen, we're married, so we ain't got to like impress anybody.
Oh no, my
but
wife will tell me I smell sweaty or whatever.
She probably likes it though, Nick. She probably goes, "Oh man, he got some grease.
I
smell the pheromone grease."
I've got something to talk about. Go ahead. You
No,
just
I
reminded me
just
of
think-
something.
I just think of that, but usually it's always the boys, and I'm telling you what age it is that always use Bod, Axe spray, who really take a keen interest in hygiene. It's gonna be the 8th graders.
Oh yeah,
because they just start noticing girls, and they're like, "Hey, what's up, lady?" And then they got a little cologne on. They always want to look a little bit nicer, and yeah, it's always gonna be the 8th graders.
If not by 9th grade, they definitely will because the older high schoolers are going to pick on them, and there's going to be a shift that's going to take place with that. But I would say for our young listeners, that's the other thing that surprised me is the age of our listeners. We get all these analytics and statistics. It's younger than us, and so we do have a good audience of young men that we get to speak to. And so I do think that's something we could take this moment and have like just a moment of wisdom to go, hey guys, take care of your hygiene.
Or just take a bath.
Take a bath.
Take a bath.
Take a shower every day.
Don't take a bath.
And if you come home grimy and dirty, take a shower before going to bed. Like don't wallow in your bed sheets and stuff like that and your sweat and all that stuff. And then brush your teeth.
That's right.
Wear deodorant.
That's right.
And wash your clothes. See, because if guys don't wash their clothes, they can take all the showers they want. But then if they put on their dirty clothes and clothes that haven't been washed, it's going to stink.
Funky.
And then I would say also clean yourself like after going to the restroom and stuff like that.
Yeah. Wet wipes.
There you go. Clean yourself.
Yep.
Because somebody said this one time. Like, would you pick up a thing of dog poop in your hand and then just take a napkin and wipe it off? It's not gonna be clean.
Who said that? They were wise, bro.
Very wise. But then think about this. You do that, but then in the hot humidity of the South, you're walking around with that swamp butt.
But, dude, I was in my head. We have that ESPN happening with our minds because I was just thinking swamp butt.
Yeah, and then no, it just doesn't work. And so, guys, young guys, listen. In November, I will have been married 23 years.
Wow.
If you want a young, beautiful woman like I was able to lock down at 18, take care of your hygiene.
Yeah. If you want to keep her, too.
If you want to keep her, for sure. then take care of your hygiene. Take it from Shane and Nick.
Yeah.
Take care of your hygiene. Now, I do want to, that you said something while I'm thinking about it. I do want to point this out.
Point it out.
Because I've lately been watching this show, and I was telling our sound engineer, Cartel, about it. He was actually telling me about another show I want to catch up on, and I'll reference this in a moment with one of our other segments we're going to introduce. But it's really pretty cool. You can find it on Tubi for free, and one of the channels on Roku or whatever. And so it's Bear Grylls, or however you mention say his name. He is the host, and it's like a real Survivor. They drop these people off on an island, give them a few tools and things, and then they got to survive for 6 weeks on their own. They got to hunt, gather, all this stuff.
Where's it at? Tubi?
It's on Tubi.
Okay,
there may be some other places. I can send it to you. We can link it in the show notes as well. But I was surprised at this because you mentioned something that just really made me, spark my interest. Not only is that a cool show, I think guys or ladies would like it because the ladies actually, at first, it's very difficult for them. You can tell the difference right off between guys and girls. Like the ladies there's food. They find food and they want to keep it as a pet, whereas the men are jumping right on it and just slicing. They're slicing the throat, putting a knife through the skull. That's not a pet. That's food. We're going to starve if not. So you can tell the difference right off. The ladies fare well. They towards the end of the show do well, and I won't give it away. But I will say I was really surprised because you always hear how guys, all they talk about is sex.
Yeah.
I was shocked. Like you could barely heard anything from the men concerning like sex and those type things. The women, like every show, multiple times are making sexual innuendos and all of this. It was really surprising to me. And really, it made me think about how sometimes it's just exhausting how women look at us. They just see us as a piece of meat.
As
like
objects.
as objects. They only think about sex. That's all they want from us. We want romance. We want to cuddle. We want a relationship. Right. Let's spoon, without any expectations. And anyway, when you said something, and it just really made me remember that because it did shock me how much the women were talking about sex. And I was just like, I'm tired of it. I am tired of being an object. I mean, you have 3 kids.
I do.
I have 3 kids.
Yep.
And, it'd be a lot less if we just had more cuddle time.
Cuddle time. Yeah, dude.
But you know what?
And maybe do like a floor arrangement or something,
Right.
Like together.
Right.
Like
just
a craft.
Give me romance.
We do romance and crafting.
Stop looking at me like a piece of meat.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I get it, man. I get it. I cook, and that's what my wife probably thinks of me as I'm cooking, and then I just say, listen, I just want to craft. Can we just craft? Scrapbook? She don't even want to craft with me. That brings me joy, right?
I'm glad I heard craft the first time because the second time you said it sounded like crap.
Like crap.
You have like 2 toilets sitting beside each other.
Nah, we don't do that now. But I want our listeners to probably think we're crazy.
Well, I mean,
we're being honest.
I don't know. It wouldn't be the first time I've been accused of that.
That's true.
So what else you got going on? You got anything coming up?
Nah, man, I am
season of rest.
Yeah, season of rest. Summer. I mean, the fall. I work with the high school program with football, and so I help them out, and then our local high school here, and then just church ministry. And other than that, I don't have any speaking engagements. I'm hoping to get some time back with my family at the first week in October, go on vacation for a week. But yeah, this is like a season of like planning and executing to launch like the ministry I'm a part of, and then that's it, man. How about you?
Well, I mean, fall is on the horizon. School's back in, so we're starting to see some families coming back to the church, and so we're kind of ramping up some different ministry stuff, and so it's a pretty busy season. I did not get time really to go and have a break or vacation or anything like that, so we're looking to try to schedule that out. Rest is important. We talk about our duty as men, and we talk about all these things that we do, but sometimes it's good to just pause and get some rest. And so hopefully maybe around, Labor Day or something like that, we'll get some time, some downtime and things like that. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, I got some retreats coming up, some various different things. And so it's a really pretty busy season. So,
Yeah.
but looking forward to it all.
Yeah, kind of like the reverse. But you mentioned rest. Rest is important. Like you need your sleep at night. Also think of like when you're working out, there's sometimes where you need to rest for 30 seconds, keep your cardio up, keep oxygen moving. But then there's sometimes when you're lifting heavy, you don't need to go back to back so quick. You need to rest about 2 minutes. And so rest is important. Some cases you just need to keep it up. And then sometimes and very little rest. And then other times where you're lifting heavy, you really need a good duration of rest because you're lifting heavy.
Yeah.
Life is the same way. It's like if you just want to make a parallel. And so I think you're right, man. Like you need it. So I'm glad that you get to have some time with your family. And I know that as the lead guy, which you are, that this is when everything comes back in, man. And you're planning series and everything else and execution of a lot of stuff. And then before you know it, 4 months, Christmas is here.
Yeah.
We know how that is.
Yeah, I know this isn't our topic, but I just say this because we're talking about it. Sometimes I feel weird talking about rest because there are those you're talking about earlier. We were talking about some other things off the podcast, but talking about that pendulum because there are people who they hear rest and they're like, oh, that's they go all the way over here. It's to the extreme, and then they never come back around to actually engaging in things. So I always feel weird talking about rest because it's like I don't want to give permission to people to be lazy, but rest is important. Jesus rested. It's very vital. If you're training and things like that, you learn right quick. Yeah. You either need to rest or you're going to hurt yourself.
That's right. Yeah, it's the pace. Yeah.
Well, let's roll this next sound bit because we have a new segment we're going to introduce. We're going to do this from time to time pretty consistently, and it is called Flex the Pecs.
That's right.
So let's roll that sound clip, and we'll get into that. All right, Shane. So why don't you give us kind of the idea of flex the pecs?
All right. So just thinking, Nick, that, flex the pecs is kind of a manly thing. I think when I see people do that, I go, okay, he's a man. And just the concept that there's who's that man? Can we identify a person? It could be people that we know or something that we've seen like in the news that really displays like the characteristics of a man. Like they're handling their business, responsibility, character and integrity, just something they're just like, boom, they're flexing, And so I have a guy that I'd love to say, man, I've seen this guy flex spec, and his name is Mike Sizemore Sr. because he has a son that has the same name as him, and he would be junior.
Okay.
So he's a senior. So I'm a senior, but I have no other son. So it's just I'm the first and probably the last. But he is Mike Sizemore Sr. I know him as Daddy Mike, and he is someone that when my father-in-law passed away, 12 years ago, he stepped in the gap and has been there for my family and shown up tremendously and has done some things for my younger boy and Sawyer, and then recently showed up to encourage my son Andrew, who just placed his faith in Christ and got a signed football from a friend of his who is actually the father of Tyler, who's on the Dude Perfect. And and I was just reminded of someone who is, and that's not a reason to nominate him, but like someone who's always been there for me and for my family as an example. And he's always, he just shows up. He picked the mantle up. Like you always wonder, when somebody passes away, like who's going to take the torch now? Who's going to pick the mantle up? Who's going to be there? And I do believe that God gave us Daddy Mike, and
awesome.
And I just was reminded, very grateful for him. Matter of fact, I have a training at our church tomorrow night, and I have him as the push speaker.
Nice.
Do a 20-minute encouragement and accountability, and I've asked him to come, and so I'm just like, yeah, he would be the somebody that I would say displays that.
Is he Scott's dad?
Exactly. Yeah,
okay.
yeah. He's the daddy.
Okay.
So hence Daddy Mike. And so that's what we call him. What about you? Cool. You got anybody?
Yeah, I think just connected with him on social media. I think he's part of the Cartel now.
He is.
Yeah, so Flex the Pecs. I would say somebody that's really been on my mind and heart lately that I really have seen really with an attitude of service and that servanthood, which I believe is very important, is a guy named, he's from our church, Richie Heath. And like just a Saturday ago. It rained. We're supposed to have a whole team here to do landscaping. I mean, it poured. And so you're looking, everything needs to be done. It's raining. Sunday's the next day. We're going to have people on campus, both our regular church family, but also guests. And, it is what it is. You can't do anything when it's pouring down rain. Well, I was up here doing some different things at the church. And so then afterwards, it quits raining. And then I see him pull up, and he is outside of the church. And he is got his weed eater, got his lawnmower, doing what he can.
Man.
Even with wet grass, he took ownership and came out and to serve his church family to really help provide as nice as possible. I mean, we've got 21 acres of property, so there's no way he was doing everything. Yeah. But those areas where people are going to pull in and where their first impression is, and not only that, a couple weeks ago, I'm getting dings on my watch because we have a Ring doorbell camera on our admin building, and it was Richie kept walking by back and forth because he was once again touching up the lawn until our next landscaping team could get out, just touching up to make it look good. And he's also taken ownership of some not construction but maintenance type stuff around the church, and really just stepped up and taken ownership. If something needs to be repaired or whatever. And what's funny is, and I think this is really highlights of most men, most heroes, especially that we might watch on movies and stuff, he was really hesitant at first. It wasn't like he was the bombastic, jump up there, me. He originally was kind of reserved and kind of hesitant. But then once he got into it, he took ownership of it. And so he, I would say, is that guy who's flexing his pecs right now, and he's really stepping up to the plate.
I say, Richie, you're a boss.
Yes.
Yeah, and what I love, everything what you just said is, I mean, I always feel Richie and with Daddy Mike, like men do, a real man, I would say, does the hard work of leading and serving, and most of it's behind the scenes. The things you don't get credit for, so you don't seek out recognition. You just serve. And I tell my youngest boy, who's 9, Andrew, we were taking out the trash, and it was cold and all that, and it was raining, and he said, "Why do we have to do this now?" I said, "Well, you need to know that sometimes daddies have to do this type of stuff, has to do the hard stuff, And so behind the scenes, oftentimes not the most glamorous, but that's what happens. That's what a real man does. He shows up and to say, "Hey, I can help."
Absolutely.
And so, man, that's awesome. Boss move, Richie. That
Absolutely.
Awesome.
And he's leading others and recruiting them, and so that's it's awesome of him. So it's a great example for me as a younger man to watch him and to see that of him. On the flip side, one more quick segment that we're going to introduce, and then we're going to get into today's topic and discussion, but that is the Mansectomy. The Mansectomy segment. That is actually one of the names we were looking at for the podcast.
Yes, I'm glad we didn't do that.
Well, yeah, because we were kind of looking from a flip side of that's really what culture is doing, is trying to give men a mansectomy. But we're going to do a segment called Mansectomy, and these are the guys that aren't stepping up. Maybe they've already had that mansectomy, and they need to maybe step it up.
That's right.
And so really when I was thinking through this, I was thinking that through the TV show, The Island, there was a couple of guys on there. There was one guy in particular, he was like an IT guy, and from the very beginning, he did something very ingenious. They were having trouble starting a fire, and they've only got limited resources. Well, he had eyeglasses on. So he takes his eyeglasses with the sun and starts a fire, just like you would do with a magnifying glass. And so it was like big hero, at first. Well, then throughout the show, as all these guys are out doing the heavy work, the manual labor, cutting wood and carrying over to keep the fire going, hunting and gathering and fishing and all that tough stuff. He's over there sitting on the beach with like a little brush or something he found, like brushing the sand off his feet and sunbathing and just grooming himself, kind of the extreme of what we just talked about, the hygiene. And they, the other guys are getting upset because they're looking for food.
Yeah.
They're keeping the fire going. And here this guy is sitting back, taking it easy or trying to do
ladybug.
Right.
Being a little ladybug.
So I nominate, I don't know the guy's name, but it's the type of guy. I nominate them this week for the Mansectomy Award.
Well, I saw a guy he must be the cousin of this guy because I was at the Walmarts and saw a guy who's pretty fit with his wife and had groceries, and they come up to the car, and he goes in the car because it's hot, and guess who loaded up the car with groceries and then put up the buggy?
Punk.
Not the car. Yes, I'm grateful they put up the buggy. Okay, because if you leave the buggy out, you're a dookie neck. So she put the buggy up, and then she shut the door and hopped in the car. That dude, he hopped in the car because it was AC. I know without a doubt. And I was like, I watched it going, huh? Maybe he has trying to get the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he has some kind of illness or whatnot. Can't lift up 5 pounds.
But did he walk out?
Dude, he was in good shape. And trying to get the benefit of the doubt, but I just knew it the whole time going, it's just one of those situations you go, something ain't right about that.
Yeah.
So that's
he had a disability. It's called a mansectomy.
That's exactly
because he's a loser.
Yep. He's he's not good. I'm trying to say I'm stuttering through it because what I really want to say I can't say on the air.
Right.
So we just say he's a punk.
Well, so for today's discussion, we had kind of talked about this as being one of the things we look forward to talking about. We got 3 clips that we'll play at different times that really going to kind of be conversation starter or conversation continuer. And we won't spend a huge amount of time on this. We've had a great first episode of just catching up and really talking about a variety of different things. And really, that's kind of how we want this to be, kind of unscripted. And really, we don't have a script with this. We've just got some clips that we wanted to play that really, as we've looked at them, maybe we agree. Maybe we have some other viewpoints, especially as followers of Jesus. We may look at some things differently. But today, we want to start. We'll put the links to these clips in the show notes. And so our Male Cartel listeners can go and check them out for themselves. But this first one's from Jordan Peterson, and he talks about being a dangerous man and how important that is. And so I'm going to play the clip, and then we'll respond to it. And once we kind of say a few things on that, we'll play the next clip to kind of continue on that conversation. So here's that clip.
Saying men should be dangerous. By dangerous, that implies I should be ready to threaten someone, to hurt somebody.
No, you should be capable of it. But that doesn't mean you should use it. There's nothing to you otherwise. If you're not a formidable force, there's no morality in your self-control. If you're incapable of violence, not being violent isn't a virtue. People who teach martial arts know this full well, right? If you learn a martial art, you learn to be dangerous, but simultaneously you learn to control it. Both of those come together. And the combination of that capacity for danger and the capacity for control is what brings about the virtue. Otherwise, you confuse weakness with moral virtue. I'm harmless, therefore I'm good. It's like, no, that isn't how it works. That isn't how it works at all. If you're harmless, you're just weak. And if you're weak, you're not going to be good. You can't be, because it takes strength to be good.
Go ahead and start the conversation on that. What's some of your thoughts on that, being a dangerous man, being weak, and being, the things he was talking about there?
Yeah, well, my first image when I watched this video the other day was a lion. And how a lion looks so beautiful, majestic and all that, but at the same time, it's powerful, and it looks almost like you can go up to a lion at a watering hole or especially like if it's at a zoo or whatnot, you can just go and pet it, right? But it would tear your arm off. So there's a great respect that's there too. I love that he said, it's not, we don't want to do harm, that you're not strong and all that dangerous so that you do harm, but you're capable of it. Capable of harm. And I just think that is awesome. Power under control, strength under control. There's restraint there, and there's great respect when somebody is pulling back. You know what I mean? And that shows like meekness, humbleness, but also that it shows a lot of self-control, which is in our today's culture. People don't have a lot of self-control. It's like over an indulgence and whatnot. What do you think?
Well, I like what he was saying. If you're weak, it's not really a virtue. Because if you're weak and really you don't have the capacity to be a threat or to, do those things, to be a dangerous man, then really it's not a virtue because you don't have that capability. It's only when you have the capability to do something and then you choose not to do it or you control it that becomes a virtue. It's so I love that aspect of what he's saying there. It made me think of superheroes, and we know those aren't real, but I love really the picture painted by a Superman or a Batman where, unlike Batman, for those who are Batman fans, Superman has the superpowers. Like, he could rip things apart.
He is super now.
He is super. He can fly faster than the speeding bullet, or faster than the locomotive, and, bulletproof, all of that, laser vision. So he has the capability, and even Batman with his tools and his toys, they have that capability, but yet they kind of mask it in their alter ego.
Yeah.
And so they control it because they don't go around the whole time as this danger. Or even in our opening clip, there's a guy, and he says there's a difference between being a danger and being a threat.
Right.
Actually, I think it's both. You have to be able to be a threat, but you're not threatening.
100%.
So you're more defensive. Like, my name means defender of the people. I love that, because we should be defensive and be a defender, but we're not one who is out assaulting or initiating. So you're not going out being violent, but you have the capacity for great violence if someone were to come into your home and to cause trouble, to try to harm your children. I like to ask guys, and our listeners can ponder this, because I really think it's important when we're called to be the defenders of our homes. What would you do?
Yeah.
And what could you do? Let's just say you have no firearms in the house.
Yeah.
What could you possibly do if someone broke into your home?
Yeah.
You're going to be hiding under the bed. You're going to be locking your family in a closet, hoping the police can get there. If it came down to you and a perpetrator in your home who wants to do harm to your children, what could you do?
Yeah.
And would you even have that mentality to try to neutralize the threat?
Yeah.
And then what kind of capability do you have in order to do that? So I think we need to be dangerous men, and I think we need to be able to be a threat, like Ronald Reagan said, peace through strength. Like, I have the capability of doing what I need to do, but and that's going to help bring peace in my world, because if I need to, I will.
That's right.
I'm not out here actively doing it, but if I have to, cross that line.
Well, what you just said, even about your home, I know a lot of guys who are not threats. When you're talking to people and you know that they're not a threat, and they're trying to work out what that looks like, and so people always ask me for advice, and we're talking through things. What you find really quickly, because they're not dangerous, not capable, right, of anything, they don't have a thought out plan. They don't have an evacuation plan, or this is the what to, and A, B, or C. What if this goes south, et cetera? There's no plan. And because they're not capable, like, they don't have that mindset. And so, if you don't plan, you plan and fail. And so they're already defeated in that realm. And so that's a tough place to be, man. I don't know anything about that. Yeah, just to be honest. Like, I feel like I'm kind of overboard. I don't know how you feel. Are you overboard?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I'm not out here, feeling like I've got to strut and make a loud noise, but I know that I want to continue to grow and continue to improve in that area. I was sharing with you earlier, I may say it wrong. Yeah, I want to learn something, a defensive type technique, like a Krav Maga, or however that's pronounced. It says MAGA, so I don't know how that's pronounced. But really, I want to learn. I am, as I said in our opening episode, or our pilot, I might be small, but I am scrappy. And I don't go around acting like anybody that broke in my house, I'm going to be tougher, stronger, be able to defeat them. But I do know I can delay them long enough that if it's hand-to-hand combat, that one, they're going to remember me. And number two, my family can get to safety. They can get to a neighbor's house or whatever they need to do. So I'm capable enough that I can protect my family and help get them to a safe place. And I think that's the difference with men, because I want to train my sons from an early age. I've tried to teach them firearm safety, and I want them to be men, and I want them to be strong. I want them to be able to protect themselves and others, and I'm okay with that. Like if they got in trouble at school for defending someone and punching some kid in the face because they were being bullied.
Yeah, we about to eat good.
We're gonna be good.
Yeah, I'm taking you out to dinner.
Right.
We getting a steak.
So because we should take care of the vulnerable.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think the difference between men and most women, not all women, but a lot of women want to kind of tame and domesticate their sons and make sure they're gentle and make sure they're kind. And being a dangerous man doesn't mean you're not kind. You're not a domineering, even the word alpha male doesn't mean that you're domineering and angry and all that. But I do believe most women want to kind of tame and look, a good woman will help you learn to control.
1,000%. Yeah, dude. And that's how I feel. Like I've always been, how I was raised, always using my fists over my brain. And so I feel pretty battle tested. I'm very, very comfortable with physically with hand-to-hand combat situations. And so I've had to learn even the hard way, from many years ago of if I felt disrespected, if I felt like something had happened or whatever, I gotta be slow and be in control myself and things like that. And I definitely want to raise my boys, and I do now, just to be defenders of people. And so we have like a zero bullying policy. And so, but yeah, if they came home and said like they defended this person or girl or whatever in a situation, we're probably gonna get a blooming onion, bro. We're probably going to go to Outback.
Yeah, well, y'all get the blooming onion. I'll get my son the steak. And there is a difference between being tamed. That's domesticated.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Talk about the lion. So you got the lion. That's a wild. And then you've got the domesticated house 100%. Cat.
Exactly.
Totally different animal.
But see, it like you just mentioned that made me think, you were talking about like you're going to be scrappy and all those types of things. Like, here's the truth. You wouldn't mess with a tiger. It's not going to happen. No. But one thing I will not even do either. I'm not messing with a bobcat, dude.
No.
And so it's just they're going to mess you up. It's just not going to be worth the risk. And that's you. You're going to be that lynx, that bobcat. When they get done with you, Nick, and that's what I know about you, like, they're going to be scarred up a little bit, and they're going to go, I wish I didn't break in this dude's house.
Yeah, well, you're going to remember it.
That's
and
right.
So you're not going to do it again. But that is the difference between tamed, domesticated, and then controlled and managed.
Yeah.
Think about a sports car.
Yeah.
So, you can put a governor and tame your sports car where it's not going to go over a certain speed or whatever.
Yeah, don't ever do that, guys.
You get up to the traffic light. Now guy wants to race you or whatever. He's like, hey, race you for papers.
Yeah. It's either if his last name's Toretto, he's ready.
He's ready. And so you've got your sports car, and you're like, oh, I got a sports car, and the sports car, is the man. I'm a man. Well, but if you've governed it and you have limited your power and you've limited your capability, then once that light turns green, you're getting smoked. You're left.
Yep.
However, if you leave your sports car alone and you leave it with all the power that it has, and yet you learn to control it and to manage it, you learn to manage that powerful machine. As men, we learn to be strong. We learn to defend ourselves. We learn those things, but then we control it. We manage it. There's virtue in that. And I think that is, then you get to the green light and you race, you've got at least a chance. I don't know which, if you're racing a Ford Mustang and a Camaro, then you win because you're going to smoke the Ford Mustang. But you have a fighting chance without taming it. And so I think as men, we need to learn not to tame as much as to control and manage what God has given us, but also the capabilities that we have to learn even more.
Yeah, I think I've seen it over the years with men, or I guess would say husbands, letting their wife raise up the boys, and then the husband's basically tame, and then their boys are basically tamed and being a certain way, and then the mom is sometimes a helicopter mom. And so I always think about that when I see that play out, going, I wonder if what's going to happen to those boys when they get to be dads one day.
Yeah.
It's just a cycle, And so
I'm going to play this other clip.
Yeah,
we may
let's
not
go.
have too much because I definitely want to get to the third clip, which is the
we gotta
final.
do the third one. Yeah.
But this is just really an example of why it's important based on the testimony of someone who has done harm to children.
There was an interview a while back with a child predator named Jack Reynolds. And he was asked specifically how he targeted kids. And even more specifically, he was asked what characteristics he looked for in a child. He surprised the journalist because he said more than the characteristics of the child, he looked at the family. And if there was a strong father who posed a threat, he stayed away. There's been an ongoing debate about this concept of toxic masculinity. An honest person can look at the various traits associated with masculinity. Among those are the capacity and capability for violence. And I don't know if you've picked up on this yet. Many of the same people who seem determined to justify the exposure of other people's children to sexual concepts and themes are the same people that seem equally determined to misrepresent the capacity and capability for violence as toxic traits. And you gotta wonder yourself, why would it be that the people that wanna have these sorts of conversations with children also wants to convince a generation of men that their ability to step in and physically defend their children is something to be ashamed of rather than something to properly develop? So I'll remind you of how this entire conversation began. It began with the discussion of how a child predator admitted that the greatest thing he feared was a strong father that could protect their children from a man like him.
I've been in trainings and sat through tons of those types of interviews, and I would say that's from my vantage point, or all the wisdom or years or experience, I don't know what you would call it, but I would say the same thing. Like, that is 100% true. 100% true. And it's the whole posing threat, who's dangerous, that type of thing. And they go for this, just like the animal kingdom, same way. You know, if it's gonna, a predator, if it's not gonna risk getting hurt, for prey. It's too great of a situation, and it's not gonna do that. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think, as we've been talking about, definitely we don't want to reduce our capacity to be dangerous, and really the capacity to, we've got to use violence to protect our family. Once again, we're not initiating it, we're defending. But I think as well that being present in our children's lives, and that's the other thing that they look for, is a really dysfunctional home. And I think strength can not only be in the ability to defend and protect our families, but also it's in providing a healthy home where our children are loved and they feel a part, to where they're not looking for that attention and that affection and those things. But I think we also have to be a good, almost like a sheepdog, where we have to be very protective and watchful of who we're giving influence into our lives, because that's what they often do. These predators, is they'll befriend the parents and to weasel their way into the children. And I think that's where we have to, not to be super blatant, like, once again, super loud about it. But I think every once in a while, even if people think we're just joking, to make it known, I will hurt someone for hurting my child. The Bible says to turn the other cheek. Well, that's my cheek. But when it comes to my children's cheek, and when it comes to my wife's cheek, you're not slapping them on the cheek.
Hey, it's not talking about booty cheeks, I promise you that.
That either. So I might choose peace if someone wants to do me harm. But you go after my family, it's going to be a totally different story.
100%.
And so I think we need to cultivate a healthy home. I think we need to make it known we're very present in our children's life. And I think people need to know that we have the capacity to defend that family, and that we're willing if it comes down to it. And that takes away nothing from being kind.
That's right.
And being gentle, but it's also letting people know I'll do whatever it takes to protect my.
Hey, listen, I think you are being kind. I think you just look at people. You're letting people know in the world, hey, listen, it's going to end very badly for you if you do this.
Right.
I think you're being kind, but just saying that, hey, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. That's kindness. And I think you're leading that way, and people are able to notice that. And obviously, there's a lot of different angles that we could go to that. What's the third video? Because I'm pretty. I like this one. Mine's short and sweet. My explanation on this one. So,
like that guy, the fat dude in the bicycle suit, ripping those pieces of paper out of those girls' hands.
Leave her alone. Sarah, just walk away.
Walk away.
Hey.
Hey, get off of her.
What?
I would be in the news with a big old fucking orange jumpsuit on if that was happening to my daughter.
Oh my God.
It'd be a real problem.
Joe,
I
it didn't
wouldn't do
happen.
that.
It didn't happen to your daughter, right?
I know.
You
it's a
just
problem.
went to a dark place there.
I go there all the time, Bill. It's a real problem with me.
I know. I do too.
I go there all the time.
Yeah. Just like the guy on the podcast, when you watch that, you definitely go to a dark place, and it'd be the worst day of that dude's life, period, because he's towering over her, wrapped up with her, and then he's physically grabbing her, assaulting, and she's a little girl, you know, and if it was my daughter, if it was even not my daughter, if I just saw this go down, it'd be the worst day of his life, you know, and he mentions it too. And first thing I thought was exactly what he said. What he says, you go to a dark place, and I can't help but, and I know you're the same way as I am. Like, you see that immediately within moments, it starts coming out. You start getting worked up. Like, you're really like visibly mad, very upset, where everything changes, tone, posture, and you're like, this guy would be the worst day of his life. That's my thought. And I can't believe that the mom was the man, and she was like interfering, and the dad was just being like very nice about it. You know, don't touch her. You know, just very just go on, and the dude is extremely aggressive. Yeah, you're like, the roles are reversed, and the mom wasn't really helping the situation out either, because the guy got what he wanted. You know, I guess he didn't want her to solicit or to put up flyers, and so he was like going to take care of business on his own. But I would say, man, that's a punk of a dad, you know. And so if he was before me, I'd say that's a punk move. I don't know how you shake it. That's just a punk move. Even if you were in a wheelchair, man, I'd try to run that joker over in a wheelchair. Like, you got to put it in 4-wheel drive and run that dude over. That's what should happen. What do you think?
Well, I think there's two males there that are not men. Yeah. You got the man who's going after the little girl.
Yep.
And yeah, I don't even know that it would even get out of my mouth, stop.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure it would in the process. My phone's going to be on the ground.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be on the man quicker than he can even get to my daughter.
Yeah.
I got more upset and more angry when I looked at the video and saw that he had 100%. Literally touched her.
Yep.
And then if you see the amount of grip that he has, the mom has more authority in her voice than the dad. I mean, the dad sounds so weak and so, like, the man with the bicycle helmet, you know, he's listening to that. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Because you don't even sound like you have any authority.
Yep.
That's where you got to deepen your voice a little bit. But once again, the voice isn't probably even coming out at that moment.
Yeah.
And that I think is the prime example of what we're talking about. Like, in that moment, that man should have been on the ground, maybe never to get back up again. You know, I'm not advocating like killing him, but I'm talking about, I don't know. I think I would snap. I think something would just go off on me because, once again, that's my daughter. And even if it was someone else's child, but my daughter is going to be a lot different as far as the way that I approach that.
100%.
And I would hope that I'm raising my sons to be the same. I think it instills confidence in our children as well. And I know this has been quite the lengthy podcast, but I do want to share this real quick because when I was at a stage, I forget how old I was. I was a young adult, but there was a situation where I was visiting them up in Kentucky, and there was this guy, tall, slender guy, had a belt buckle, tight jeans, you know, looked like a hillbilly, you know, hick kind of guy from the mountains of Kentucky. Long grease mullet, cowboy hat.
Okay.
And so, you know, the rules on the go-kart track, we were doing go-kart, is not to hit one another. Well, I got a dud, you know, go-kart, and so it wouldn't steer. So right off, I think I hit my sister or somebody, and he warns me, and I explained to him, like, hey, it doesn't, you know, it's not my fault. And so I make it around the track, I think, one more time, and then once again, end up hitting someone. It was always in the turns where you've got 2 or 3 go-karts wide. Yeah. So he starts yelling at me and telling me to get off, you know, and get out. And so, of course, I'm kind of upset because it's unjust because it's the old, crappy, you know, go-kart. And so he's yelling at me very angrily, that I got to get off. And I just wasn't going to have it. And so I start walking towards him. This guy's much taller than me. I wouldn't say huge, but he's a big guy. And he's much older than me. And so and I've told this story before, but there was a confidence in me because as I'm walking towards him, there's someone standing behind him that I know is not going to let that man do 1 ounce of harm to me. Not that I was trying to be violent, but I wasn't backing down from him just because he thought he was the authority. In fact, his boss came and kicked him off the ride because he was in the complete wrong. Huh. I don't know if he fired him on the spot, but it was my dad standing behind him, who maybe not was as tall, but was much bigger. And you see him standing behind this punk who is arguing with you and acting as if he's going to be violent. And the amount of confidence in me knowing that my father was standing behind him just was something great. And I think about that young girl, and I'm like, what kind of confidence does she have in her dad, knowing that he stood there on his phone, letting her get assaulted, letting her be touched by another man? There can't be any.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that whole situation, that situation just shows what our culture is today. Where it's kind of shaping where you can't defend yourself. I think victim mentalities in that. A lot of people are not capable. I guess they don't even think about that. But the whole, if our viewers that they see the video, it's definitely heartbreaking on every level. But yeah, he would get dropped. I don't know what that is in Spanish, but he would be dropped.
Right.
Yeah. He'd be removed from the situation.
Well, yeah, and in those moments, you can't be thinking about your own.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I don't want to get hurt because she might get hurt.
That's
and
right.
So, you've got all thoughts of self are done at that point. You got to consider those who are being threatened.
That's right. Consider others better than yourself. Yep.
Well, man, it has been a great discussion.
Dude,
we've covered a lot of ground for our first episode. I am looking forward. I know we've got some interviews coming up and that we're lining up. I've already lined up or spoke with one that I'm excited to kind of announce once we can get that scheduled. But, man, I'm loving this even more. The gap, because we're talking about doing it every 2 weeks, is going to be harder and harder.
Yeah.
Because I have fun doing this.
Yeah, I do too, man. We could be here all day long telling stories and just things that we've seen and what we want to discuss and what we think are interesting and what I think our listeners would appreciate. I think I'm looking forward to it. I've got some people ready to do the interview as well, some young people.
Yeah.
And so I think could offer a really good perspective as well. And so I think interviews are going to be awesome. Company's awesome. We got to get you those deep fried shrimps yeah, it's going to be awesome. What else?
Yeah, hey, if anybody has anything they want us to discuss and talk about, they can now email us at contact@melcartel.com. We would love for you, first of all, thank you so much for listening.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining the cartel.
Let's go.
Please help us recruit so others can join with us. You can follow the show on Spotify, Apple, Outcast, other platforms. Please leave us a review. We would love to get a 5-star review. You can just put the stars on there, or you can leave, some feedback. That always helps. If I'm looking at a podcast, I want to see what other people are saying about it.
I'm the same way.
Yeah. And so, as well, on our socials, please share the show. Get that out to your friends and your family that you are doing life with, as well on Facebook, Instagram, all the other social platforms. You can follow Male Cartel. We post different quotes and things like that you can enjoy, that you can be a part of in between the shows. We'll be sharing clips and things like that. And so we would love to have you join with us. If you got any feedback on the show, once again, please let us know. But we're going to continue this conversation on our social platforms. I'm going to pose out there. What does it look like to be a dangerous man? What do you think about this? That way y'all can join the conversation.
Yeah, if you've enjoyed it, share your enjoyment.
Absolutely. Well, until next time, we are Nick.
And I'm Shane.
And we will see you on the next episode, and hopefully we'll have grown the cartel.
That's right. Let's go.
Thank you for joining the Male Cartel podcast. Be sure to subscribe and share to help other men join the cartel. You can also keep up with us on social media and at malecartel.com.